It's time for the chaos to cease.
Time to open yourself to peace.
From the hours you've put in.
To the next shift you begin.
From the endless pursuit of release.
That finds the worst unleashed.
Transform the ugly into a win.
Get to know your shield within.
Good day, all, and welcome to the Shield Within.
Welcome. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Dr. David. I'm your host, Mark the Cop, and that other silver-toned bastard on the other microphone there is Dr. David Buchanan. Not a real doctor, mind you. We don't want to mislead anyone,
Right.
but you are tell me what you are.
Licensed professional clinical counselor.
You would think I would fucking know this for as long as I've known you by now. I don't.
On the other hand, why remember?
Yes, and this is our brainchild that we dreamed up, so we're super, super glad that you're here with us tonight.
Yeah.
Let's do a little business here first, then let's dive into tonight's episode 10. 10, believe it or not. Thank you for listening. We appreciate each and every one of you. So if you're out in the world of social media, we do have a Facebook page. Drop by, check us out. We're at Facebook.com/The Shield Within. If that's not enough for you, go to our website, www.theshieldwithin.com. If your life is chaotic and it's time for good advice, you can work with Dr. David himself, the man, the legend. You can either hit the coaching button from The Shield Within or go to lessonslearnedcoaching.com, and he'll be able to help you out. And if things are really bad or you need a referral, Dr. David will be able to help you there too.
Absolutely.
So we have lots of professionals in our area that very good folks, do a lot of good things.
Yes.
So the Shield Within, we are healing through humor.
Absolutely.
Is the stuff we like to do.
Yeah.
For those of you who haven't been here with us for the first 10 episodes, or 9 episodes now, I was formerly one of David's patients. And when he said he was retiring, and after I got done screaming into a pillow, we became friends. We get to hang out together now and do podcasts together. So that's absolutely the coolest thing ever. So I'm a 30-year police veteran. You've been, 45 years doing what you're doing?
Yeah, it was like 41 to 42 by the time I walked away.
Yeah, so we're both retirees.
Right.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of. I still do training, and I'm still kind of in the realm of police work. I am suffering horribly from PTSD. I've had a few critical incidents over the years. So part of the show, or I feel that the big portion of this show is not to sit on here and whine about what a miserable fuck I am, but to be able to help you as the listener and with David's counsel to be able to get you to a place of comfort. I've been through the war and then some, I think. I got a pretty good story. But if you've been to the Shield Within Facebook page, I put a meme up the other day. And if I may here, since I have the mind of a goldfish.
Yeah.
The meme says, and it's by Street Cop Training, which is another good Facebook page. They're not endorsing us. We don't endorse them. I'm not just mentioning to them that's where it come from. Got to give them credit. Do you know who the character is on that? Yeah, who is the character there? Because I'm drawing a fucking blank. I got Arrested Development on the mind, and that's
Larry David?
Yeah.
Or
what show is that? See, we're both a couple of retards. Anyway, we'll think about it here in a minute, and we'll put it on there. But it says the meme is what's got episode 10 here, just what's just been on my mind, and I'm kind of obsessive, I guess. But it kind of folds into a lot of things, and a lot of things I've been seeing here in law enforcement lately. But anyway, back to the meme. It says, when your agency treats you like shit, but you're too chicken shit to leave. You're too chicken shit to leave and actually be happy. And down at the bottom, it has this character's photo, and he's kind of like looking over his shoulder in anger, and it says, fuck you, and I'll see you tomorrow. So, and that's kind of where I was, at my agency before I left. And I was miserable, wasn't happy, went through some bullshit, and it was bullshit. so things had changed, and I talked about in an earlier episode. It was kind of like going to your parents' house after they've moved out and the next family moved in. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why did I stay as long as I stayed? And when I finally made the decision to retire, first I wanted to leave and just go to another agency, because in my mind, my ego told me, man, you need to be a cop. But then my old broken down body says, you need to find something else to do. Because I'm 55 years old. I'll be 56 this year. So, and then I got to looking, and I got to talking to some colleagues, and there's a lot of miserable cops out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why do you stay here? And my one good friend, he kind of went through some bullshit at his agency, and it was just absolutely that. It was just toxic management, because they're not leaders. I think if you're toxic, you're not a leader. Would you agree with that?
Right. Leadership is something different.
Yeah, leadership is trying to make the best for you. Mm-hmm. So he was enduring some toxic management, and got over disciplined for, he really did nothing wrong. So I said, why are you staying there? Why would they in the state of police work today, all of us old hats are like, fuck this. And I had a guy tell me, when I was still happy on the job, he's like, how much longer you got, man? And I said, I got 4 or 5 more years. He's like, don't stay. And I said, do what? And he said, if you can leave now. Don't stay for the money. Mm-hmm. Because there's a thing called deferred retirement option plan.
Okay.
Where they're getting cops to stay beyond 25 years.
Oh.
And they're paying just ridiculous amounts of money. Some cops are earning more money in drop than it took them, than the money they accrued in 25 years of working.
Oh, my word.
It is insane. One guy worked 8 years and banked like $480,000. I went, how in the fuck can you do that? How is this profitable to the fund?
Yeah.
How? This doesn't make sense.
Right.
Well, what's happening is they're deferring the payout, and as more people come onto the job, you're having, 5 young people coming in paying in, and you have one going out. That's I guess the basic principle of it. Okay. So anyway, but what he was saying was that there's a lot of cops that stay for the money, and they accrue all this money, and then they do something stupid because they're like, fuck you, or like me, I became the industry changed, and I didn't, and I quickly realized that I was becoming a liability to myself.
Gotcha.
Because of my ego and my attitude. Okay.
Gotcha.
So I attempted to go to another agency, and then finally I'm like, I can just fucking retire. Did the numbers, and I'm like, later, Tater, and I left.
Yeah.
And people's like, would you get dropped? I said, yeah, I dropped my paperwork on my boss's desk and said, I'm out of here in 2 weeks later. Mm-hmm. And half of that I took off to go teach. So if you're wondering how Mark the Cop's doing today, as we sit here, I just got done teaching a 3-day class. It's called Advanced Dynamic Vehicle Ops for the state. Mm-hmm. And just had a wonderful time with those 15 people. A little bit of tragedy. On day one, 2 of my students, adjacent jurisdiction to where I used to work, the one student was friends with one of my recent academy graduates.
Okay.
He had just gotten hired at an agency, local, and unfortunately died in a motorcycle accident. And I'm like, oh man! So the one officer that was in the class hadn't known yet, so their agency called me and said, hey, this is what's going on. If you see one of our cars show up, we're picking her up.
Whoa.
So that's what's going on. I appreciate the heads up. So I called my boss, so we handled that really with good kid gloves, and we got that officer some peace and got them home.
Awesome.
But then I found out later that night who it was. Threw me in a depression hole, man.
Right.
It's like, damn, great kid too. He's like one of these kids that's like, man, you're gonna make a great cop, but life's precious.
Absolutely. You just don't know ever.
So on that note, why stay somewhere and be upset?
It seems to be such a basic and simple question, and yet so hard to answer. One of the things that being a therapist all those years did was it taught me that whatever is familiar has power. And I saw that originally with a woman who I had an enormous amount of respect for, who was living in a marriage in which she was beaten often.
Oh my gosh.
And she was an incredibly bright, strong-willed woman, and became, my client. And we worked on a lot of things that would seem to pile up to, here's a lot of good reasons to do something in your life besides live with this guy.
Okay.
And so we went through a series of steps to get into her shelter, and her kids were not going to be a part of the equation.
Really?
For a lot of good reasons. And everything was ready to go. And she didn't trip any of the things we had set up. She just went back home and got beaten. And I couldn't understand it. It was just like, this is going to happen again. You pretty much know the sequence of events, the pattern of behavior he will demonstrate to you before he hits you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to stay. Yeah. I don't need to understand that other than whatever is familiar has power. And she knew that man. She knew how to live with that man, be a parent to her children, have a full-time job, have a circle of friends, have a relationship with her family, all that stuff. If she left, what the hell where would she live? Who would she live with? How would she be able to have a car and get to see her family and her friends? How would all that work? It would create so many questions. And then, I'm going to be dating somebody. I'm too young to just stop, but I don't have any interest in it. But just the number of questions.
How old was this person at the time?
About 35 to 40.
Oh, good Lord. Young kids?
Teenagers. Early teenagers.
Okay, so she had
11 and
they had kids
13.
young then. Okay. So mid-30s, so mid-20s.
Yeah.
Early 20s. Kind of like the way I had my kids early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah.
And so I
run.
right.
You're young enough to be able to create another life, man.
Right. But so many women in domestic violence situations have this enormous fear of leaving. A, it's unfamiliar, and B, maybe it'll be worse.
Okay, so that's great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought us to that point. A lot of cops stay at their agency, especially shitty ones, and because they think that's how the job is. Well, if I just leave this shithole, I'm just going to go follow in another one. So it's better to get fucked by someone I know than get fucked by someone I don't know. It's I guess it's like I can really appreciate how blended families coming together. I don't know these people. Now I'm getting shoved in a room with them, or this is my dad's girlfriend or my mom's boyfriend, and they got a couple of dork kids that I don't like. I don't know them. I don't barely know this person, so it's you're right. That familiarity, is that right? Is that the right word? Does have power.
Yeah.
And it does have power. And that does tend to force people to stay, but not all police departments are ran. There's half of them out there are ran with leadership, with good structure.
Right.
Everyone's, and I've said for years, every agency has its bullshit. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's the industry.
Yeah.
It's the industry. Law enforcement's the only industry in the world that you have an accomplished professional. Let's just use me. I was responsible for A, B, C, and D. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, by the way, I'm leaving in 2 weeks. So instead of them saying, hey, could you take so-and-so under your wing and kind of show them what you're doing here?
Right.
No, they get fucked.
Yeah.
There was another friend of mine that was retiring, and he was going to stay there. He said it was 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. So they appointed his successor, and he's like, hey, dude, this is a big job. I wear 3 hats. You may want to come down here and start getting your hands dirty with what I'm doing with your new assignment. And the guy took it very lightly. He showed up for 4 hours on Fridays, 6 weeks. So 6 Fridays. Yeah.
Wow.
And then after he's like, dude, when I leave, I'm leaving. You're
on your own, man.
You're going to be neck deep in swirling and not understanding how this is working. And
that's right.
He goes, okay, well, and sure enough, the guy was texting him almost daily. Calling him. He's like, and he finally my friend got to the point. He's like, I'm not answering your fucking phone calls anymore.
Yeah.
You had every opportunity to come up here
and
learn. But most agencies, that person leaves. They don't have anybody set in there to mentor or to replace. But
right.
We're kind of getting off topic. But
it's part of the responsibility, it would seem, of an employer to have some continuity with what they're doing, especially in this particular situation where you've got a community where you might have somebody who doesn't know a particular town that they're going to be serving in, and who's where, what's what. I mean, being familiar builds power.
Oh, yeah.
So the more familiar you are, the more powerful you can be as an employee.
Exactly.
Works the same way. Boy, I looked at that meme and it made me sad. Was the reaction. I mean, Larry David's a whack job. He's nuts. And
Let me Google him real quick so we get this show.
There's a sadness to the truth that the individual law enforcement professional, don't have enough self-awareness to know I have to leave. I have to do something different. And maybe it's not leave, but I have to do something with how I handle this experience of being a cop or a fireman or an ER nurse, whatever. There's something wrong here. And like just going to something severe, like thinking about hurting yourself, like behaving in an incredibly horrible way to your spouse, like finding insulation in alcohol or other drug experiences. Gambling can be a lot of fun. Get your mind off things for a while. Empties your wallet, lightens the load.
Ruins your life in another way.
Exactly.
Degenerate gambler.
So, like, I think the key thing I got when I saw that was like, man, this is a moment to say, when you're in this profession, it's really to your benefit, day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, etc., to be aware of what the hell is going on inside of you.
Oh, yes.
If you don't pay attention to that, dude, everything you're going to experience in that job is going to fuck you up. If you pay attention to your insides and then develop a toolkit to deal with at least some of the shit that goes down, then you can walk into work knowing, like we say on the outro, embracing the risk you have to go through rather than running from the tasks, the department, which gives you no support. And like you're saying, bro, my God, everybody listening to this, and the 3 or 4 people that aren't listening to this have had
the world,
exactly, over the entire globe, have had a job that sucked.
Oh, yeah, at one time or another. Absolutely.
Yeah. You have somebody above you that is a complete dipshit and has no clue what they're doing, much less what you're doing.
Correct.
And they're supposed to be in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Inept.
Yes,
inept management, yeah.
So I think to be aware of that when you're in the job, man. This is killing me. This is hurting me.
Yes.
My life is starting to deteriorate. My relationships with the people that matter to me are starting to deteriorate.
Right.
Something's wrong. Either again, it starts with knowing what's going on inside of you and then applying that knowledge of learning what's going on inside of you to questions like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Right.
And if you can come up with a really good answer, far out. But chances are you won't. Because if you ask the question, you probably got a reason to ask the question.
Right.
So what I thought so much of was, again, the listener that contacted us before Jerry came up.
Right.
And was, not like worried and not telling us to stop doing this, but just, you guys need to understand that when you talk about shit, it triggers stuff in me.
Yeah, I forgot to do our PSA there at the beginning. We promised ourselves we would do that. As listen to the Shield Within may drudge out some shit. So.
And
there's our warning. So
it's a truth. It's a truth.
It is true,
and it's a thing that we have embraced the responsibility for. And having Jerry on last episode was really helpful. Being able to talk about grounding and how important that is. And to me, it's like, man, if you're in a job and you've got people above you that are idiots and you know it, and you have a job like first responders, and you're aware of what all that involves, and you're miserable, acknowledge that you're miserable.
How do you get there, though? Like with me, I fucking loved, past tense, I loved being a cop.
Yeah.
Loved every bit of it. It was what I was. I ate, slept, and shit being a cop. I was, you know, we love music. We love movies, you know. That's why if you listen to the It List podcast, that's what we talk a lot about. But, you know, that's kind of a basis of your and I's friendship. You were talking about music before we started the show today.
Right.
Listen to Little Chevelle. What was the song?
Ouija board,
which I got to check out. We'll listen to that on the way to dinner. Anyway, how do you become miserable? How do you, you know, when does it start turning? And so I was asking my my students, you know, and I'll ask you the same riddle. So I had a blow pop in my mouth because we always provide candy. I buy candy and I give it to the students, and I buy bottled water. And I'm one of these idiots, you know. Why go spend my money? Well, you know, I want my students to have a good experience while they're there at the class. Awesome. So I'm sucking on a blow pop, and I said, okay, here's a trivia question: what early '70s police character sucked on a sucker? And he was bald headed.
Kojak.
Boom. See, you know this. Blank faces all the way across the. I had 6 officers. One officer was almost my age, and I said, "Telly Savalas? He's bald." Nobody knew it was Kojak. I'm like, Jesus, the little red light you put on top of the car, the Kojak light, and they're all just clueless. You know, I'm like,
right.
I guess I'm getting old. But how do you get to that miserable state? And I can tell you, it started turning for me in 2016.
Okay,
it's 2022 now. The lights started dimming on the career in 2016.
Okay,
and I think that's about the time, because my dad always told me years ago, son, you're only as good as your boss thinks you are. And I think that was the time that there was another person at the agency where I worked started bending the ear of my boss and started, and I was clueless to this, but that person started, and I don't sound like a paranoid fuck, and if I do, please call me out. That person started changing attitudes with the people within their circle, which bled into. It just started bleeding out.
Okay.
And, of course, I don't give a fuck type of guy, and I didn't give a fuck. I'm like, fuck you. If you don't like me, you know, suck a bag of dick.
Right.
But my love for the job started changing. And then after my critical incident, the really bad one, I saw the absolute total lack of support from my administration. And that really sent me down the tubes. And my wife reminded me that, she says, you know, right after that, I told you, Mark, you know, you can just quit. You don't need to stay there. You're very talented. You can do all kinds of things. You know, so, and that's kind of where I want to come back to the meme with like, Curb Your Enthusiasm is the show.
Right. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Thank you.
But, you know, stand on a job you once loved because it's easy and it's safe, you know. So you're talking about, you know, and virtually what you do when you go to work, when you stay there, is you're being abused. That is a low form of abuse, you know, and that's what I was enduring. You know, and it just gets to the point to where it's kind of like, you know, in the barnyard with a barnyard full of chickens, is that the number one chicken nobody pecks that chicken.
Right.
But the chicken that's number 10, everybody can peck that. So number 1 can peck number 2. Number 1 can peck number 2 and 3, and so on. But if you're number 10, 1 through 9, I'll get to take a punch at you. And that's kind of where you kind of get into that mode. So remember, boys and girls, can I use pronouns like that now?
Sure.
How about all y'all? I remember all y'all, but not all agencies work the same.
Right.
If you're thinking of change, if you want to stay in the profession because you're invested in the crappy, and I repeat, crappy pension, if you take that money and give it to a good investment, it will triple in size. But anyway, so if you're going to be invested in that pension and you got 10 more years or whatever, or your mid-30s, if you've been working there since you were 25 and your mid-30s, make the change. You will thank me later. Don't leave because you're mad.
Right.
If you're pissed, and I was fucking angry at some of the choices, and there was one agency I probably should have went to. It was a township just south of the county I live in, and a great, strong leader, good, strong leadership. They didn't pay as well, but great bunch of people. Great bunch of people worked there, and I kind of wish I'd have took that job. But backing up a little farther, in 2015, I got an offer to go to Georgetown, Texas, and I didn't take it. And as we sit here today, now I wouldn't be doing the shit I'm doing today.
Right.
But that would have been a total move. It would have been pull up stakes,
right.
Move to Dallas, because it's a suburb of Dallas. But the chief that I was friends with said, I'll bring you down as a sergeant. No, I want to be a lieutenant. Like a dumbass. And he says, I can't bring you as a lieutenant, but if you come down and you're a training sergeant for X amount of years, then you can take the lieutenant's test. But I'll bring you down as a sergeant. I'll pay you X amount, and I want you to run my training facility. Well, that was the golden goose being laid at my feet, and I kicked it away. Should have went there, but, that's water under the bridge. But I didn't move because they didn't have the courage to go. Opportunity was banging on my door, and I wasn't smart enough to open it up. Most recently, the township job should have took that. But either way, do lots and lots of research. If you're looking at a department where it has very little turnover, there's a reason for that.
Yes.
Those people are happy.
Yes.
And they're made, they don't leave. You don't leave bad jobs, good jobs. You leave bad bosses.
Right.
Which is another meme I put up on our Facebook page. But, if you're not appreciated and you're treated like shit, why stay somewhere?
Right.
Boys and girls, or y'all, they need you. You don't need them. Everyone's begging for cops right now.
Everyone.
The Kettering Police Department is hiring lateral entries right now.
Wow.
On this day. And they are, to me, one of the top-rated police agencies in the state of Ohio.
Wow.
Their motto is Ohio's finest. And they're right. They are. They're super fucking high-speed and professional. Now, I'm sure there's probably some disgruntled employees there as well.
Right.
But a lot of people from my agency, former agency, would leave my former agency and go to work there.
Okay.
Because it was such a great place. And they're retiring out of there.
Yeah.
So it is a great agency. It isn't run... Everyone has their BS, but overall, you get a 5-star from Mark the Cop.
Yeah.
But having that courage to go, and maybe you just don't want to be a cop anymore.
I think that's just one of many options. I think the whole thing starts with self-awareness, and then as you become aware, you're not happy in this position. There's at least two basic questions to ask yourself. I don't think there's any shame at all. I mean, this happens in mental health too. Not that long ago, there was a therapist in the area who decided to take a job doing something tremendously different than what they were doing.
Really?
Because this individual had poured his professional heart and soul into this client who then ended up dead.
Oh, by their own hand?
And
okay.
And it was like she'd been doing it, I'm not sure what the gender was, but like the individual was not that far into the career, like let's say 5 to 10 years of experience, was good at what they were doing, but finally asked themselves the question, why am I doing this? When that's what comes from me working my ass off, is the person, my project, my mission, the person dies. I think driving a school bus looks damn fine.
That's funny you mentioned that. Is that what you got? I didn't want to change subject on you.
No, that's good.
So they left
the field,
mental health,
right,
and driving a school bus, now,
right,
which is a great job if if your life is set up to do it, because the benefits are awesome. You work twice a day, and that's it.
Right. So if you're not happy being a fireman, for Christ's sake, ask yourself, do I really want to do this? Is this really for me? if the experience I've had so far, is this going to be how it's going to be for the rest of my career? Do I want to live this way? And then I think the other thing that you're talking about very well is an old saying from one of the people I like listening to. When you're looking at employment, don't chase good money, chase good management.
Yes, fuck yes, exactly, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Do lots of research on the place where you want to go work.
Yes,
I mean, a good friend of mine who is a fireman. Him and his dad had a company, and I can totally relate with the fact that him and dad just weren't seeing eye to eye because he had a vision as to how he wanted to take the company.
Right.
And dad's like, nope, my company and my rules. And he's like, all right, well, I'm going to go start my own, which is what I was going to do before I became a cop. I was either going to, because I was in the car business. I was like, my dad and I were just butting heads, because our philosophies were different. So my friend started his own company, which was very similar along the lines of what him and his father did, because there's enough business out there for everybody, trust me. This guy building his third house now, and I left 2021, and he had just sold a house and bought a house in one of our affluential neighborhoods, just totally spent a ton of money rehabbing it, and now they're building.
Wow.
So his company is just like growing by leaps and bounds, and one of our city workers left the city and went to work for him, and I ran into him in Menards the other day, and I said, how's things going? He's like, oh my God. He said, we are just growing leaps and bounds.
Wow.
This guy is awesome to work for. He's always stopping by. He's always telling us what a great job we're doing, always jumps in to help out, And I said, yeah, because he's a leader. I expect nothing less of him.
Yeah.
Because he's a great dude, man.
Yeah.
And all of his employees are just happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good for you, bro. Because he had the balls to leave dad.
Right.
And to go out on his own.
Yeah.
And to chase his dream. And life is good.
Yeah.
It's precious because, we talked about the young man that didn't make it to work.
Yeah.
He had a crash.
Right.
And be happy.
Mm-hmm.
People ask you, how are you doing? But I rarely hear people say, hey, you happy, man? You look good today. Are you doing all right? What's making you happy? And, I've recently went through some life changes. Mm-hmm. My wife and I are working on our marriage. And hopefully to get things back together.
Awesome.
And so I'm kind of wanting to get your take on, and I've had people say, well, you're just going back to her because it's easy and it's comfortable. For me, that's not the case. Mm-hmm. Is there some, because her and I have been apart for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, part of this is getting to know you again.
Right.
And what I feel like I've been a prisoner of war. I feel like that I've been away.
Okay.
I've been in a place where I didn't really want to be.
Right.
Because I thought I was going to be happy.
Right.
But it came down to I'm not happy.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I tried to do to make me happy made it worse, made me less happy.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
But when I'm home and there is a place in Washington, state of, called a Haystack Rock. Mm. And we were there. My wife and I took a cross-country camping trip. Mm-hmm. And we were there in 2015. And we took a picture. And I was truly happy. And so was she.
Wow.
And then, of course, shit happens.
Right.
Right. And like I've told before, is that I created this. Mm-hmm. And, with her and I coming back together, I realized that, we don't need to be anywhere.
That's right.
I don't need to be here in this house and in this studio. I like this house and I like everything I built here, but I don't need to be here.
Right.
I mean, we could, well, you and I couldn't, but, what do we do for the Shield Within?
Right.
But, we can do remote work or I can move somewhere or be somewhere else. It doesn't matter where you're at. Be in your own happiness.
Yeah.
And if you're stuck in a job where you're not happy and you're not fulfilled and you're just treading water, fuck that. Climb out of the pool. Do something different. Mm-hmm. Have the courage to move. Have the courage to look elsewhere.
And to notice that you're harming yourself. by staying there.
Yes.
It's such a simple thing to look in the mirror and you go, oh my God, that guy in the mirror looks like shit.
Yes.
And his face looks like that. Look on his face is like in concrete. And it's not a smile.
Or that look of constipation constantly.
Yes, exactly. Right. This boy needs a poop. But it's other people are going to... You kind of pay attention. You're going to reflect off the people around you, and the people around you are going to they're going to tell you in their own unique, perhaps mildly sensitive, and maybe even loving way, dude, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, are you all right, man?
Yeah.
Or he hates everything. He's just grouchy.
Exactly.
And you tend to negativity. It's just like a cancer, man, and especially in public safety. God, it'll sweep through just like a fucking wildfire. And I just got to the point to where I avoided those negative people. Once I started getting into a better frame of mind, is staying around that constant negativity. And what I found was that when we talked about my friend Tom that said, you need to get away.
Yes.
And he's so right, was that since I've made some changes and I'm away from that whole environment, goddamn, I feel better.
Yeah, exactly.
I can actually, I'm not much, but I'm sleeping a little more.
Right.
Still dreaming Cobb.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Had another cop dream the other night. Shout out to Dan Harris. He was in it. I mean, just a stupid thing. And I woke up and I'm like, oh, God, when's this going to end? Oh, yeah. Oh, God, when's this going to end? But because I whispered, I didn't know if you can hear it. But making big changes for your own well-being is critical.
Right.
And, you've been through some life changes.
Oh, my.
You seem very happy now.
Yes.
I mean, no, you look happy now. You seem very happy. Every time I see you now, I mean, your energy's so much better.
Yeah.
Not that it was bad before. It's better. Not trying to find some negativity in the world here. No, you were always cool before, but now you just, I don't know. You kind of glow a little bit, man. I can tell you seem like you're in a good spot.
Somewhat frightening.
Why would that be frightening?
Well, whatever it is you have, how good it feels. Well, it's not going to be over. It's going to be over soon. It's just part of the trip, and part of the thing that, for me, that I've been reading this guy named Young Pueblo.
Okay,
and he talks a lot about what we cops know this, EMTs know this, ER nurses know this. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because a lot of what you do is uncomfortable.
Oh, yeah.
And you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, or it will eat you up. You have to learn how to manage that discomfort so that you have a job, the job doesn't have you.
Right, but people quickly reverse that. Like my friends, like, well, I just go to work to relax. I'm like, you need to find a therapist, dude.
Right, exactly. And there's a lot of, today was a day just, I don't know. I spent the morning looking for resources. And I'm going to share one of these now, but I've found another one that's just ringing in my head. The one that I found today that I shared with you just before we started to record is called First Responders Bridge. And for all of those of you who are first responders, that includes you ER nurses and family members and departments, First Responders Bridge is in Ohio. They do stuff in Ohio for Ohio first responders, and it's free. And these are weekends retreats where you're going to be in groups sitting with other people who feel just exactly like shit like you do. And you know how you got there, you know how the person next to you got there. You share, you learn, you absorb, you express. It's a really wonderful looking experience, and it's something that any of you listening to who have connections to a first responder, tell them about First Responders Bridge. And look on their website. It's very clear cut. I think it's a service that pretty much anybody can. It's non-intrusive. You're just going to go for a weekend. It's not going to be a long, big deal. And you're going to get connected to resources that you can then maintain contact with for a long time.
So a retreat, is it one day?
I think it's a weekend. I think it's like a Friday through Sunday.
Go in Friday afternoon, spend all day Saturday, Friday night, spend all day Saturday. Do they do it at like a hotel or like
not sure
log cabin somewhere? Or?
I think they reserve some spaces in different parts of Ohio, whether it's hotels or other kind of conference areas. I mean, the state of Ohio has DOT offices everywhere that have big conference rooms that can be accessed if you know the right people.
Right.
And so I'm sure I haven't looked into to see exactly where they are, but I know that there's one in December that still has openings the last time I looked. The business is located in Dublin, and I would encourage people to go check it out. It's a real good look.
We ought to look into doing that. I just want to go over and just check it out so we could talk about it. When you and I go.
That'd be cool.
Just to participate, not the lecture.
Great idea.
I got a feeling that probably you and I'd be lecturing, but I think that'd be fun to do.
Or we could have the guy on.
Oh, yeah, better yet.
The guy that formed it, that founded it a few years ago. It's not like real old.
Right.
But he's like, I think in his 40s. I read just a little bit about him. But
was he a cop or a firefighter?
Former cop, as I understand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the plate got full, and he realized that everyone's hurting. And
I think there's a lot of that. There's just so much awareness. People like you and I have talked on our podcast before. You look around you at your department, the people that you're working with, the colleagues, and you know who's having a hard time.
Yeah, and reach out to that person.
Yeah, exactly.
Just hey, man, you all right? Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. I know. But you can talk to me.
Yeah.
And leave it at that. But be a person of integrity, because I can tell you, I've had people say, well, man, you can talk to me. I'm like, motherfucker, I wouldn't tell you at the time of day because you have it all over to the department.
Right.
So trust is a big thing with first responders. That's why, going to these retreats where my mind instantly went, it's like, well, if it's on a weekend, they aren't going to go unless they're off on like I had to take an FMLA leave.
Right.
I would do that if I was on FMLA.
Right.
But my thing is while I was off, although I was in intensive therapy with Jerry, I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I sat here and fucking ate my face off and gained 40 pounds, but, which was the worst thing. I should have went to the gym and went the opposite way with it and, just became a workout junkie, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I became a fast food junkie, which was worse.
Right.
I had some great comedy during that time on the hit list.
Awesome.
It's kind of like, we got a few minutes here. We're at 42.
Okay.
I want to tell you about me hitting the wall the other day.
Okay.
How do I say this? Okay, so you have to get your. I'm a certified through the Ohio Peace Officer Training Commission to teach at the Basic Police Officer Academy, and every 3 years you have to renew your certificate.
Okay.
So, I know all the right people, and it's always been a quick and easy process up until this year. And the next and last question on the application was, have you ever been charged or investigated for, and it gives a laundry list. Well, yes, I had to check yes to that because it was, it just investigated for, not accused, not charged. Well, it did say charged with, because there's some people, if you're charged with a crime, you can't teach. And,
right.
and that's simple, and that's understandable.
Okay.
But the incident that I went through, there was never anything there because it never happened.
Right.
I was just accused, and it was a shit show.
It's just empty.
So I had to revisit that, and I had to relive it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was extremely upset.
Mm-hmm.
It threw me into a very dark, deep depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just spinning. It was like someone, remember the old tops where you just pull it? Wing!
Yeah.
And that's just the way I was. It was a beautiful day. I just could not get out of the funk because it was just so reactive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I reached out. I pulled some resources.
Good.
I spoke to Susan. She said, because I was in fear that I was going to make some phone calls and talk to some people I didn't want to talk to.
Right.
So she said, you can have a liaison, make that phone call.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So I called my friend Rick, who was my FOP rep. throughout the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, bud, would you be willing to? And he said, oh, yeah, whatever you need. Sure, I'd absolutely do that. Mm-hmm. But then he called me the next day and he said, we don't have to make a phone call. We have that documentation. Do we? Yeah, I'll send it to you. Pow. But because I got so reactionary.
Right.
And I was so just full of anxiety, I wasn't thinking clearly.
Right.
Because I knew I had that. And had I not reacted the way I did, because I just got all caught up in I did this and did that, send lawyers, guns, and money, and I'm like, no, this is a very, very simple process. Mm-hmm. So I said, hey, thanks, and I sent that in with all the necessary documentation.
Right.
And I was like, this is why you don't sit home in your own head.
Yes.
This is why you reach out and you get resources. And this is why you surround yourself with good people.
Yes.
So the good news is today I was informed that it was approved.
Mm-hmm.
Never had to lift a finger to contact the people I didn't want to talk to.
Awesome.
I keeping that distance there, which is the way I want it to be.
Right.
For my own goods, for my own happiness.
Yes.
But what I realized with this was that, I called Jerry. I said, yeah, we need to talk. And he's like, okay, perfect. And so I went in on Monday, and him and he's like, 1 hour, 2 hours. And I said, I think we can get this done in an hour. Mm-hmm. But if we need 2 hours, we'll EMDR it out or hypnotherapy it out. Mm-hmm. Let's talk. And then you let me know. And he's like, well, who is this? Because Jerry likes to use a bus, 60 passenger bus. This is you. The bus is you, but who is this person on your bus that took over and started driving for you? Mm-hmm. And I nicknamed him Anxiety Eddie. He just totally overwhelmed me and shut me down. Mm-hmm. I did not even get dressed till 3:00 in the afternoon. That's how bad it was.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, yeah, we got to get this under control. So I got an appointment with Jerry. We're going to go next week and work on some deeper work.
Good.
But terrible shit.
Wonderful example to just share briefly. I know we're close, but like, when you were,
it's our show. We can go as long as we want. Our goal is 45 minutes. Yeah, fuck them. No, sorry,
man.
Keep listening.
That's right. Go take a nap.
Right. If you want long shows, listen to the It List. We plan on being done here in less than an hour. But.
Right. If you have the rest of your day available.
Right.
You were in a dark place.
Yes.
A place you did not want to be. That you went to precipitated by something other than you. Mm-hmm. You got there, and what did you do? You reached out.
Right.
You called somebody who this time was Susan. Mm-hmm. Fucking awesome.
Right.
Which I'm guessing made a nice impact on her. That you were calling her to share.
Yes.
That experience that you were having at that time. Mm-hmm. She then led you to somebody else to call. Mm-hmm. Another resource that's always there for you.
Right.
In a different kind of way than Susan, perhaps.
Right. Yeah, yes.
But he was able to kind of tune you back into yourself.
Yes.
So the combination, you get in that deep, dark place, those of you who are listening, and you follow Mark's example. Who can you call right now if this is triggering you?
Yes.
Who can you call right now that you know will listen to you?
Right.
And take your experience, accept your experience, carte blanche, not without analyzing anything or questioning you, will just listen to you.
Yeah.
Find that person. Have a list in your head. Have 2 or 3. Might be people that would surprise some of the other people in your life if you told them. But have those resources available. And then, like Mark's saying, have the courage to call them.
Yes.
And say, right now, I need an ear. And I've chosen your ear to dump my vomit into. Lucky you. Right. And that person will be happy if you've chosen well.
Yes.
To be that ear.
Yeah. Find that silver dollar in life.
Yeah.
Our producer.
Yes.
Producer Donnie was one of the people that I spoke with.
Beautiful.
Initially.
Yeah.
And he gave some good advice and some good counsel and basically talked me off the ledge. And I know when I get to that level, we talked about grounding earlier in the episode.
Yes.
Get regrounded. I just had to shake it off, go through those grounding, and then I work is how I busy myself, busy hands.
Yes, very good.
As you can see, the house is always clean. So whenever I get upset, I start working.
Yeah.
So what I did was I made myself get out of the house.
Yeah.
Dude, you got to go.
Yeah.
Get up.
Yep.
Made myself
Yep.
go take a shower. Yep. Made myself get dressed.
Awesome.
I knew I had this class coming up, so we needed a bottle of water. So I went down to Sam's Club. Mm-hmm. I just went down there, and I ran into a colleague. He was just so excited to see me. Sarge, how you doing, man? Great to see you. You're looking good, brother. We miss you out here on the street. Those were good days hanging out when you were on Midnights, bro. And, I was just telling my wife, and I said, hey, how are you? Good to see you. How's the kids? He said, I don't have that because I took on another assignment. I'm in another area now.
Right.
He's a trooper. And he said, man, there's just great nights working with you guys down there. And he said, man, so I was telling her just the other day, man, we don't have that, where I'm at now. And I said, man, it's great seeing you. And just visited for 5 or 10 minutes. And, that was, I think God's way of saying, you know what, you have worth.
Awesome.
And everyone has their worth, their self-worth. And sometimes we don't see that.
Yeah.
And again, to get back to Larry David's meme here, is that don't sit around somewhere where you're not appreciated.
Right.
Remember, as shitty as they treat you, they're only treating you that shitty because you allow it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the minute you say, you know what, and you don't have to be mean.
No.
Just start preparing yourself.
Right.
If you need to get an education, the FOP pays for it. You can get all the way up to your bachelor's degree, 0 charge. Do it.
Yeah.
Don't be me.
Yeah.
Prepare yourself. You may not leave today. You may not leave tomorrow. You may leave in 6 months. But you don't have to tell anyone you're leaving. A good friend of mine changed departments, and I didn't even know it. Mm-hmm. A mutual friend said, hey, guess who we swore in today? And he dropped the name. I looked and my jaw hit my chest. And I'm like, this guy's been with this agency for 22 years.
Wow.
How bad do you got to piss a loyal employee like this off? And this guy said he was a ninja. Nothing to no one, and then Pop Smoke and left.
I love it.
I mean, that it's just like that, guys. Remember, the walls have ears. So if the only way to keep a secret is don't tell anybody.
Right.
But I'm not saying being sneaky. Take all the emotion out of it.
Right.
See, and that was my problem.
Yeah.
When I got emotional.
Right.
I wasn't thinking logically. When I think logically and get out of that emotional state. And so I said, don't leave because you're pissed off. Because when you're pissed off, you make bad decisions. See, I was full of anxiety because I allowed that emotion to skyjack me.
Right.
And once I got grounded, once I started thinking about it, the level head started coming out, provided the things that I needed. Hey, we're good for another 3 years.
Right.
I'm happy about it.
Yeah. Respect the emotion, express the emotion, and clear the emotion out of you so that you can then make decisions and solve problems. Because emotions are not there to solve your problems for you.
No.
Other resources are used for that.
Yeah, that's right. Do we have anything else on your notes there we want to hit?
Dude, we could spend another 3 hours on this.
Donnie, key the music.
All right. May your days and nights find you strong and safe. May you take your place as your family's face. As you do the shit that we won't do. As you embrace the risk you must go through, may you grow in strength and heal and find your heart, your soul, and your mind. You look at your life and grin. You have a home, the shield within.